Good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
And I am Rich Carlson.
And we're the Scanner Guys, and we're live this evening from coast to coast and worldwide on our YouTube account. If you haven't already, as we tell you each and every week, hit that subscribe button. So we are the first Wednesday of December. Can you imagine we've been doing this show for a whole entire year?
Yeah.
We've only missed one Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. And the best thing about this is 2020 is almost over.
Yes, 2020 is almost over. It's been a crazy year.
Yes, it has. Coast to coast and around the world from the Scannermaster World Headquarters, East and West.
And we're not even at the headquarters. We're nowhere near it.
Oh, well, this is as close as we're going to get to that.
Oh, man. But speaking of first Wednesday of the month, so first Monday of the month is coming up. And what does that mean?
Ooh, train aficionado.
So those of you that have been watching what's been going on in the Northeast, Pan Am has been bought out by CSX. So we're going to talk a little bit about that on Monday night. We're also, moments ago, Rich and I discussed this, literally.
Yes.
We're going to talk about some of those mergers that have happened over the years on Monday night. So
there's been a lot of rail mergers over the last. Well, it's slowed down a little bit because there's no more railroads left to merge. But between the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, all the railroads all merged, and it used to be like 40 or 45 big railroads. Nowadays we call them mid-sized railroads, and now you got 7 big railroads, and that's it.
So we're going to talk about that. And the other thing that's big for Monday's show, Rich has finally got his slides.
Yeah.
So we've got, you've probably got years worth of stories now to be able to share on the Train Aficionado show.
Yeah, I got my slides back there, and I guessed at it. I figured there was about 10,000 of them, and it turns out there was 9,994. I was six slides off. Six. And that's 6, by the way, not 3. That's 6. See my finger and my thumb and my finger touching. It's 6. So
wow. So it's going to be a
6 off.
Good show coming up Monday night. So make sure you tune in. We'll remind you towards the end of the show. We're talking about GPS scanning. How many of you own a Uniden scanner and didn't realize that the scanner could program itself as you travel? So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the accessory kit that you're able to purchase. We're going to go over that. There's a whole box of doodads we're going to cover, and we're going to kind of give you the lowdown on each one of those. So let's start the show. So we'll start with our opening slide here. As we mentioned, GPS scanning, December 2020.
Gotta get my props here.
Yep. So let's take a look at the next slide. So we have a baseball hat that's available. Make sure you place an order. We get a couple of days away from hitting 50. So by Friday, we hope to hit 50 hats. Right now, the total is 9. So we're a long way from 50. So place your order through the website. Go to thescannerguys.weebly.com.
For my wife, so she can understand what I'm talking about.
It's .weebly.com, and you can order that. We will remind you towards the end of the show about that as well. And Rich, we have a tip of the day. This is an interesting one because you told me about this just happened with a particular customer. So let's dive into this.
Yeah, that's where we get these scanner tips. Is when people call us on one of the support lines or on the support box and such. That's where we get these questions. So this was one that came up today, and it came up before as well. a lot of times, the people are confused. Sometimes it says 12 volts. Sometimes it says 13.8 volts. What's the difference? Can I plug something that says 12 volts into something that says 13.8? And yeah, you can. It really doesn't make a difference. 12 volts is what the nominal voltage is. Most car batteries, generators, alternators, they actually put it out 13.8 volts about. A little bit high, a little bit low, doesn't really make a big difference. It's when you put a load onto the source, the battery or the generator, the alternator, there's a voltage drop that's caused by the load. So if you have a small load like a scanner, it's going to be a small voltage drop. It might go from 13.8 to 13.6. But if you put big draw on it, like a big amplifier or a headlights or something like that, it might drop down to 12 point something. So pretty much basically, if your source says 12 volts or 13.8, your scanner doesn't care. You can plug it in there, you'll be safe, you don't have to worry about it, you're good to go.
Yeah, and that is super cool, super cool. I mean, to keep that in mind. I mean, we get a lot of these from customers, that email us or call us. And it looks like we have, before we get any further, look at this. We have a birthday shout out.
Howdy, howdy, Preston. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We hope you have a great 7th birthday. That is awesome. I remember when I was 7. That was a little while ago.
Yeah, was that last year or the year before?
I've grown up, haven't I? Very quickly, if that's the case. But happy birthday and welcome aboard, Dale. We love having you in.
Yeah. And Dale also reminds us, don't plug it into 24 volts. We had a discussion about that on the phone this week. One of the people in his office plugged the scanner in 24 volts. A power supply, a printer or something like that had a same plug size, but a higher voltage. So, 12, 13.8 is fine. 24, not so good.
Yeah, you don't want to double the power. I mean, that...
What's that earning?
Carmen is chiming in. Another birthday shout out to Preston. So, happy birthday. And, that is not good. You don't want to double the power output because, it's going to create some issues.
Well, the one thing, a little bit of electronics involved here too, is a device, a radio, a light bulb, whatever, will take whatever voltage you get it, but it will only draw the current that it needs. So if you put in a device and you plug it into 120 volts, it's going to take that 120 volts, whether it likes it or not. And if it don't like it, you're going to get that magic blue smoke coming out of it. But if the radio needs 500 milliamps and your supply has got 1,000 milliamps or 1,500 milliamps, that's fine. As long as the supply has got the same or more than the radio desires, it will take what it needs and leave the rest. Yeah, 24 is twice as fast. Yeah, I'm talking like this.
And it also makes the digital come in twice as great. Yeah. So,
yeah. Or you get twice the simulcast interference. Yeah.
Alicia puts in a good one. Roasting scanner radios. Yeah, with marshmallows.
With marshmallows, yeah. You don't need a fire pit. You just put the marshmallows right on top of your radio. Yeah. So how many of us have seen the magic blue smoke coming out of the back of their radios? I have, more than once.
I haven't, thankfully. Knock on. You can hear that knocking on wood.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you'll always. Here's another one.
Doubles the distance. Yeah, I wish if it did, man, I'd be having 24 power volts on all my radios. Heck, I'd plug into 120 and have 10 times.
More power, like Tim the Toolman Taylor says.
More power! Oh.
But yeah, we've got a really good show coming up. So that's our tip. I'll just post that right up there one more time. So make sure you pay attention to voltage and don't double it. And Chris,
Do you see Chris's? Yeah.
yeah, don't do that either, or don't make your scanner an oven either.
Yeah. Well, hey, Chris, you bring up a very good point. So remember the old LCD displays in the Radio Shack 2006 scanners, and then they had a 760. I left it out in the car in the sun, and I left the moonroof open. I was actually down here in Phoenix on vacation before I lived here, and it melted the LCD. The LCD went all black. And so what I did is I took the thing and I put it in the refrigerator, not the freezer, but I put it in the refrigerator overnight. And I took it out the next morning and then let it sit out in the living room. And it was fine after that. So I don't know if that still works with the current one, but it actually did make my display recover. After crystal had boiled in the sun, it was 115 degrees and through the moonroof, and it was
that's not
it was toasty.
Yeah, don't do this either. Recharge those built-in batteries by putting them in a microwave.
Yeah, that's what we should do. We should next April, the first show in April, we should do a scanner tricks that don't really work.
Yes. I mean, I don't think. Well, you think Uniden and Whistler will send us extra radios if it drops from this height? Will it break? Have you seen those videos?
Yeah. Send us a dozen SDS 200 so we can see what the drop test does.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, if they sent us a dozen SDS 200s, we would cancel that bid automatically. Thanks for the radios.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I can tell you it works fine at 6 inches.
Oh man. But let's talk about some GPS scanning. So the first
Oreos.
Here we go. Mythbusters episode.
Scanner guys, Mythbusters. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so understanding GPS scanning. We've shown these slides before, but we're going to go over it because we haven't done this on YouTube. We did this on Facebook. So we want this archived forever. Imagine we're like after we're long dead, you and we're going to live on forever on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Well, 2021, right?
Yeah. Hope we make it past there.
I don't know, man. We still got another 4 weeks to go before the year's up. So.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at this. Look at what we're talking about.
Oh, my favorite town.
Mayberry.
Yeah.
And why do we talk about Mayberry so much?
Everybody knows the name of Mayberry. So it's a great way, like a placeholder. I don't have to figure out where the guy lives and figure out what town is near here. Everybody knows that Mayberry is right up the road from Mount Pilot. So we use those two names because everybody knows them, and it works really well. And then that way they know that we're talking in the abstract as well.
Okay, so here we go, talking about Mayberry. Latitude, longitude, town center point. So this is typically how we start off the GPS conversation. Is let's say this is your hometown or a town that you travel through. This is what we're going to start off with. So now keep in mind there's Mayberry, latitude, longitude, and the center point in the town is that latitude, longitude. So then we have on the screen, we have the 536 HP, which is a database driven scanner, considered a part of the Home Patrol series scanners. So you can use GPS scanning with a whole slew of scanners, which we're going to go over, but we're using for the example for this portion of the presentation, we're using a 536 HP. Now you see our green Volkswagen Beetle is in the town of Mayberry. It's on a road there cutting through Mayberry, and it's within the 6 mile radius. So guess what's going to happen on the scanner? We're going to be able to hear Mayberry. So let's continue on with the slideshow. Oh, Look at this, Rich.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it
Looks
gets
like
busy now.
we're doing a road trip here, as you can see. So we're going to travel from basically Lakeville to Boone. So Mayberry is a part of the route. Sumner, Newport is also a part of the route. So when you're doing GPS scanning, your scanner is going to turn things on and off as you travel. Rich, we've talked about this before. When you used to do road trips without a scanner, and you've done some pretty decent road trips, what did
Oh,
you
yeah.
used to have to do?
Well, when I first started doing road trips, I had these Bearcat 2020 scanner, and I would program up the first bank for the town, the state I was in, and then the second bank for the for the state I was going to, and then someplace along the way, I'd have to stop and reprogram for the next state and the following state, and you have to reprogram the scanner for every different state you're going to, and then we're very limited in the amount of channels that you had. Now, later on, when I got scanners that had more and more capacity, I had 10 banks that I could program, and that made it useful, but I still had to sit there and program hundreds of channels by hand, which was
And
a
the
pain.
and the other thing you had to do as you traveled into a different location, you had to turn one bank off and turn the new bank on.
Yeah.
Because you'd be typically dragging that signal beyond where
Yeah.
it's fully readable. You'll with those old analog signals, you used to be able to pull it a little bit further. You would get it to the point where
Yeah.
it was a lot of static.
Yeah, but at least you could sometimes understand it,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe. So with all the database scanners, such as the 536 we use as an example, that internal database, which originates from radio reference, has latitude, longitude in the scanner for each either group or department assigned, which we're going to dive into that as well. But basically, each city or town has a radius. So we can see here Lakeville in the red. We can see Mayberry. We can see Sumner, Newport, and Boone. Gene, you're very good. I originally came from Middleborough, Lakeville. That's funny in Massachusetts. Each one of these towns have some sort of meaning to it, and I'll go over it. So Lakeville was a town that I listened to growing up as a kid on the scanner, and that was Lakeville Police. I can remember off the top of my head is 482.4875. Middleborough and Lakeville used to share the same frequency. Middleborough moved off of it. So the car right now is in Lakeville, so it's going to be picking up Lakeville, and you see that circle is by itself, so it's going to be picking up that area there. Once it gets to this point, you see how the circles are overlapping, the green one with Mayberry and the red one with Lakeville. So your scanner is now going to be picking up both circles. So it's going to be hearing Mayberry and Lakeville at the same time. So as we're traveling down the road, things are going to start to turn on and things are going to start to turn off. Look at this. We've now gotten further away from Lakeville, so we see that that Lakeville is no longer turned on because it doesn't have that dark outline around Lakeville, but Mayberry does. Mayberry, we use that because that's a part of every show that we do a town. Sumner is Rich Barnett, the owner of the company's dad's name. That's why it's on here. And then Newport was just, I thought of Newport, Rhode Island, where all the mansions are. So we basically have Sumner, Mayberry, and Newport on right now because you see how all those circles are overlapping one another?
Yep.
So that basically means on our scanner, we're going to hear the communication in these three towns. Now, as we continue to travel, we're going to see that Mayberry turns off, Sumner is still on, Newport, and Boone. So when GPS scanning, this is what's happening. As you're traveling, it's turning things on and off. So the GPS receiver or antenna is reading from the satellite your latitude, your longitude, and then determining where you are, so it'll turn things on and off in the database. It's like magic.
Yeah, exactly. And then the operative word there is that, or the operative phrase is that the GPS is telling the radio where it is. That's all it does. That's all the GPS does, is it tells the radio that you are here. And then the radio has the information on what to turn on or turn off at a specific spot. So it doesn't say, hey, if you're at this particular spot, turn this, this, and this on. Each item that it's going to turn on and off has got a location and it's got a range. And when you enter that range, it turns that system on. And that's all the GPS does.
Yeah, and this is a great component. If you own any of these database scanners on the Uniden side, you use the scanner in your vehicle, you have the ability of being able to turn things on and on if you travel. If you've got an hour commute to work, or you have a long road trip that you want to do, and you want to be able to listen to the local flavor as you're traveling, you can basically hook up the GPS receiver to your scanner and start listening.
Two questions have popped up here that we want to address real quick. Alicia's question about programming the frequencies. Do you also program the GPS settings? Yeah, we're going to get into that in a couple slides over. And then the next one.
But yes, that's definitely, Alicia, if you've got a 996 or a 15X, those are what we call clean slate scanners. So yeah, you'll definitely need to do some additional work. You can import the data in from radio reference. You can import that in, but you may want to adjust it slightly. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And what was the other question, Rich?
The next one from Charlie. He asks if he's in one spot, will he be able to hear other spots with the GPS? So no, it doesn't make the scanner work further away. What it does, you can still only hear what you're in range of. And so that's actually a very common question we get. Guy says, if I buy the GPS and if I'm in Chicago, will I be able to hear Phoenix? No, the GPS just tells the radio where it is. The radio still has to work on physics. There's no internet connection or anything like that. It just tells the radio where it is so that it knows what to program.
Yeah. So, and the other thing too, I just mentioned with Alicia's question, this works great with hardly any work on a database scanner, such as a Home Patrol Series scanner. But if you buy the GPS receiver for a 996, it's not going to automatically program the scanner. You have to lay down the groundwork and the programming in the scanner, along with latitude, longitude for each one of the systems or groups in the scanner.
Yeah, so if you've got a 996 or 15, or you can even do this on the other scanners, on the zip code scanners as well if you want to. But when you program in a system into the radio, you can program in a GPS coordinate, a range for that particular system. Plus, you have to enable location scanning as well, location control. If you can do all that location programming you want, but it's not going to do a darn thing unless you click that little box that says enable location-based scanning for that particular system.
And the thing with your database scanners, same thing. If you've created a favorites list and you want to use that for GPS scanning, Rich hit a valid point. If you don't turn on location services for that favorites list, it's not going to do you a darn thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, and I've made that mistake more than once. And I had my 996T, my first digital scanner with the GPS on it, and I spent days working on a file for the entire state of Illinois with the brand new Starcom system. And I put all the GPS coordinates for all the sites throughout the state and everything. And I was like, I spent hours and hours and hours and hours working on this silly thing. And I got my road trip and not one of them turned on. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? It wasn't until I got home till I realized I didn't enable a location-based scanning on the scanner.
Yeah, and it's just that's the same thing when I got involved with GPS scanning with the 996T as well. Yeah. So that was my first dabble in it as well. So there it is right there is the slideshow that kind of shows what we're describing, the circles, and they're turning on, and you see that the Volkswagen Beetle is, hovering over various circles. That means that those agencies are turned on. Let's dive into the next slide. This is GPS coordinates can be programmed and radiuses into the following things. Can be programmed into group category and trunk system sites. They also can be clustered. So anytime that you look at radio reference and you see with a trunk system where you see the talk groups are broken into categories or groups, each one of that cluster is going to have its own latitude, longitude, and radius. So take, for instance, Massachusetts State Police, D Troop, for example. And you have D Patrol 1, D Patrol 2, D Patrol such and such, and other talk groups that are pertaining to D Troop. Those are going to have a latitude, longitude, and a radius around that area that D Troop is. So when you enter into that area with a trunking scanner that's listening to that system, as soon as you enter into D Troop with the GPS, it's going to turn it on. As soon as you leave there, you head towards Boston, that's H Troop. So you're going to hear H Troop kick on. So that's kind of what we mean by, and those sites as well, have GPS latitude, longitude. You know why? Rich, you know, with the Illinois Starcom system, if you were scanning through every single site throughout the whole entire state, you know how slow your scanner would go?
That's why when the 996 XT first came out, that was the first scanner that you can turn on and off individual sites within a single trunking system. I didn't have to replicate that trunking for every site. And there were 140 different sites, I think, in the Starcom system. And with the 996 XT, I could break the system down into about 3 copies of the system because of the talk group limitation. But then I could have 25, 30, 50 sites for each copy of the system. And that worked out really, really well. That made life a lot easier when the XT came out.
Yeah, and that's another blessing, and that when I was using the XT, because I went from GPS scanning with the T, and then we had advancements with the XT, which was great. I mean, I've been doing GPS scanning as long as possible. I remember when I first started with Scanner Master, Rich came up with his own GPS, Rich Barnett, with the part of the Spectrum Force product line. Yeah, and I was hooked with GPS. I loved GPS scanning because I had my scanner programming itself as it was traveling to and from the office. So now,
when it first came out, I was looking at it like, this is silly. I'm not going to use that until I started. Wait a minute now. I can see how this would work. Same thing with the Home Patrol. When that came out, I was like, this is nonsense. Until I started playing with it, realized what an ingenious idea that was.
So here we go. I kind of preemptively, jumped to this slide. Like I kind of mentioned it before we went to the slide. So look at this here. So you can see Bridgewater is its own category. We have Bridgewater Police, Bridgewater Fire, and then the Highway Department. So this right here has a latitude, a longitude, and a 5-mile radius in the radio reference database. The same thing for Abington and Brockton. This is all in Plymouth County for those of you that are Massachusetts people. You know it. So each one of these in the background on radio reference, which we don't physically see, there's work that was done to put latitude, longitude, and radiuses on.
We
on this
see
stuff.
it. They don't see it.
And I'll tell you, there was a lot of issues with the database. When I became a global administrator, I was able to do some work with tweaking some of it. There was some counties in the state of Maine which were set up with each city and town like this. They all had one latitude, longitude, and a huge ass radius. So guess what happens when you do GPS scanning like that, when you travel into the county? You're going to hear everybody and their uncle all the time. Which that's not the purpose of what you want to do. You want to have.
So you broke it down to the individual towns with their own GPS coordinates, then.
Yes, and their own GPS radius. Because if we did that across the database, you'll be saying, this GPS thing doesn't work that great.
Yeah, I did kind of the same thing when I first became a database administrator, and I became more aware of how the GPS stuff worked. I did a lot of the programming for Illinois. Myself and several other guys went through a lot of the communities in Illinois, and yeah, a big state with hundreds and hundreds of communities. There was a lot of work involved, but for us, for database administrators, and there's a couple other administrators on the board here tonight that I've noticed, we have access to that, and there actually is a fairly simple tool for us to use to do these settings. So if you're a radio reference member and you find a GPS setting that's incorrect, either the range is way too high or way too small or just totally off, hit that submit button on radio reference and send it in so that an administrator, one of us, one of the other, 15, 20, 30 administrators, I don't know how many there's administrators there are, whoever is responsible for that area can make the correction and fix it. And then that way, after that correction's made, when it's in your radio, now it'll start working properly.
So I'm looking at, while you were speaking there, I'm looking at Scott's comment. And this is a huge for truckers.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Bob, which is also a viewer and a rail fan, and he's also a trucker that drives throughout New England. Mm-hmm. He is a big fan of the, I turned him on to the 536 HP. He was originally on the, he had a Whistler, not a Whistler, but a GRE PSR 600.
Yeah.
So then I said to Bob, why don't you do the 536 with the GPS? It's got the nationwide database. I showed him how to create favorites lists. And mind you, he went, whoa, this is the best thing in the world, because the scanner just turns everything on and off as I travel.
Yeah. And this is great if you're an RVer or a trucker or just do a lot of traveling like I do. It's ideal. One thing we should mention is that Uniden and Whistler scanners, the Whistler scanners that support GPS, or not GPS, but location-based scanning, like the TRX 1 and 2, they work totally different. Mm-hmm. So on a Uniden scanner, when you put in a GPS coordinate or you put in a zip code or you put in a city or state, however you put your location into the scanner, it basically acts as a center point on a map. And then you set a range. That could be 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles. And that's how big a circle gets drawn around that zip code. Everything within that circle and a few things outside that circle will get programmed into the scanner, depending on what database you have active, the full database or your favorites lists, etc. Or if you're on a clean slate scanner, whatever location control groups and systems that you have turned on. When you put in a zip code or location on a Whistler scanner that supports it, like a TRX or one of the older WS 1080s and such, when you put in a zip code, it figures out what county that zip code is in, and everything within that county with the service types that you selected gets programmed in. So
totally
they do work a little
beast.
different. Yeah.
And the other thing with the Whistler and GREs, they don't support GPS scanning.
Right. And they also, and then also on the Uniden, a lot of times people will put the GPS location in, they're not hearing the stuff because you have to check your service types as well.
That's for sure. So let's take a look a little bit more at radio reference. This is the group category that you saw there. Now, we were talking about this just a moment ago, Rich and I, about sites. For example, this is a small regional system in Lexington, Virginia, and it has a north site and a south site. And look at a side note there, it says simulcast, so we know the SDS 100 and 200 would be the best option for this county since it's got simulcast issues. So right here, each one of these sites are going to have its own latitude and longitude. So when you travel from the north or the south, it's going to turn on those particular sites. And then also for the talk groups, how they're grouped together will each have its own individual latitude and longitude. Let's take a look at the next slide. This is going to show, of course, the south site. as you see there. And then this slide kind of shows how it's broken apart. So you see the northern site is with the green, and the southern site is in the blue. And you can see that there's going to be, and you will run into this when you're out there scanning, there is overlap, as you can see here on the map. I mean, these are circles. So sometimes, it may not be perfect. You may be dragging a city or town signal a little bit further than you normally would because it's a circular latitude, longitude, and a radius. But yeah, you can see there that this county, there's a north site and a south site. So let's say we're in the northern part of the county, you're going to be monitoring the northern site. When you're in the southern part of the county, you're going to be monitoring the southern site. And that's pretty much how it works with trunking systems on radio reference. So what did we learn with radio reference is each group cluster typically is city or town cluster is going to have its own latitude, longitude, and radius. With a trunk system, you're going to have, for each site, it's going to have latitude, longitude, and each cluster or group of talk groups is going to have its own latitude, longitude, radius.
Yeah, and those sites for these big wide area systems is going to be a huge blessing to you, especially in the states that have the statewide trunking systems like Starcom in Illinois or Safety in Indiana or Viper in North Carolina or, all these, Colorado, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa now, the Carolinas. They have these big, huge statewide trunking systems. You can turn on and off the individual sites. And that becomes very important because every site you're checking is going to take a few seconds, and you're going to miss a lot of traffic if you have to spend all this time checking all these sites that you have no chance of being able to hear.
Yeah, so if you're using a scanner in the vehicle and you have a 536 or a 436 or an SDS 100, 200, or a Home Patrol 1 or a Home Patrol 2, you can add a GPS component to it, and it would allow you to be able to do exactly what we showed in the slides that we just showed moments ago. Now we're going to show you the brand new Uniden BC S GPS Universal Kit, which I have mine right behind me. So here's mine right here. Okay. So what I'm going to be working on probably either later this week or this weekend is a video unboxing of of
Don't open it. You got a box.
I know. Well, I haven't. As you can see, I haven't done anything with it at all. Everything is in its plastic bag. So I'm actually going to do an official unboxing video, which will appear on the Scanner Master YouTube page. So I'll do an official unboxing of this. Also, the slides that you're going to see in the next series of slides, I'm actually going to go over in depth individual videos pertaining to a particular radio that you may have. We're going to dive into it right now. So let's take a look at. We actually have a little bit of history because there's been some items that have been discontinued. Now, let's first go over what scanners are capable of GPS scanning. Look at this. So we've got the 15s, the 15X, the regular 15, the 346, the 396, the 996, T, XT, P2, the 436 HP, the 536, the Home Patrol 1.
Slide. Do we have that list on a slide?
Yes. I'm looking at the slide, but I'm not showing anybody the slide. Here we go.
There you go. That's better.
Here's the slide. So as you can see here, the 15, the 346, the 396, the 996, the T, the XT, the P2, the 436, the 536, the Home Patrol 1 and 2, the SDS 100 and 200. I mean, that's a whole boatload of radios that are capable of GPS scanning.
Yeah, and it's pretty much everything that handles trunking, that the current scanners that Uniden makes that handle some format of trunking, or obviously all the digital scanners pretty much the only scanners that Uniden sells right now that doesn't support GPS are the SR30C and the 125AT, and then the more recently discontinued 75XLT.
And of course the 355 NC.
Oh yeah, I
and
forgot
all that
about those
business.
things. Yeah,
those
I don't even have those scanners, and I've never had one of those. So.
Same here. I've never owned one of those. But there's the slide right there. So sorry, I was.
Yeah.
I see the slide on my screens constantly, so I forgot to put it up. But there's all the radios. I mean, that's a lot of radios.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the next slide here, and we can see the basics. Here's the basics, and this is very, very important. Rich, baud rates. Tell us a little bit about baud rates. What is that all about?
All right, so baud rate is the speed in which the serial ports talk to each other. So if you have a serial port and a serial device, when they're talking to each other, they have to have, it's a setting. So the two devices have to be set to the same setting so that they understand each other. So if you've got one of these older GPSs with the round GPS receiver, and it just says, what does it say?
Uniden.
Uniden on there. It's actually an off-the-shelf GPS receiver that they connect on, and it's got a little DIN plug on there. And then there's an adapter cable with a cigarette lighter plug and such. So that one uses a setting of 4800 baud. It's a little bit slower. It really doesn't make any difference as long as they're both, the radio and the GPS receiver is the same. If you've got an SDS 200 and you've got one of these GPSs, the setting is 9600. If you've got the GPS kit here, which is open, and I've got stuff I know, so it's the same GPS as the one they used to sell specifically for the SDS 200, and it's going to be 9600. All of the Uniden scanners are capable of having that GPS baud rate changed, and it's in the settings. It's under, if you go to set location, and then set up GPS, you can set the GPS speed. So if you've got a round one, set it to 4800. You got a square one, set it to 9600. If you're using a third-party device, you're on your own. Figure out what the speed is.
Here's the slide. This is the most important slide when it comes to GPS scanning right now. All the information is right here. So as Rich mentioned, round is 4800. The other one, the newer version, the square, is 9600.
Right.
And then how do you change it? The baud rate. Go into the radio settings. Set up GPS. Set serial port, and then it'll give you multiple options of the baud rate. So you want to make sure if you don't put the baud rate on the correct thing, your GPS is not going to work.
Yeah, it'll be plugged in. It just won't talk to the radio. And it's going to be location, set up location first. I forgot to put that when I put the slide together. But yeah, it's so depending on the GPS that you've got, and sometimes if some GPSs themselves will allow you to change the settings. I used to use a Garmin GPS 3, one of those from about 20 years ago, little black ones with a little antenna sticking out the side. And I used to use that for a bunch of different radios and stuff. And that was my first GPS I plugged into a laptop and all the rest of that stuff because we didn't have nav systems in the cars back then. And that one, you could set the GPS to 9600, 4800. I don't know, there are 5 or 6 different settings. And it really doesn't matter as long as the GPS and the radio are the same.
Yeah, and this is a very good slide that we're going to have next is the frequently asked questions regarding GPS scanning. So let's take a look at each one of these bullet points. The first one, the GPS receiver does not normally need to be outside of the vehicle. It can be tossed on the top of a dashboard or near a window. Everybody's kind of seen my mobile setup. I basically have it on top of the metal grate of the Uniden speaker. It's
Yeah.
got a little bit. I have the round one, so it's got a little bit of a magnetic
Right.
mount to that. So it's just sitting there, and it's just visible to the windshield. The windshield is slants down on my truck, and it's just enough to be able to pick up the reception, the signal from the satellite with no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, on mine, I have a minivan, and I have the GPS. I have the round GPS on mine as well, and it's got a long enough wire. So on the back passenger window, there is a grab handle, so the passenger can grab that to get out of the car and pull them out. I just lap that on that handle, and it's just kind of hanging there just below the window, and it works great.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's not even up. It's just below the window line, and it works great.
This is a common one, this question here that we get a lot. A lot of people think GPS antenna, you think, oh, this replaces my scanner antenna, so I don't need a scanner antenna. Nope.
No.
They're
You still
separate.
need an antenna.
They're two separate things. Remember that this GPS, all it's getting for the scanner is latitude and longitude, your location from the satellite. That is it.
That's it.
It's not getting programming, and it's certainly not getting reception.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is a very common question we get from people. Well, if I put the GPS out there, I don't need to buy an outside scanner antenna. No, you still do. So
You still do.
yeah.
Unless you have a simulcast issue and you're trying to avoid it.
Yeah, then you're just using a paperclip, but that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show. All the GPS does is tell the radio where it is. It doesn't provide mapping or navigational information. For instance, your GPS, let's say you have a GPS in your car or a GPS, external GPS, it does the same exact thing.
Yeah.
That is receiving latitude and longitude, and then there's software inside your GPS with mapping, and then it just is basically what it's doing is plotting where to put the dot on that map.
Absolutely. So with and then the other question we get, which I did put in the FAQ here, is I've got a GPS in my car. I've got a nav system in my car. How do I hook that up to my scanner? No, you can't. And it just, those devices usually don't have any type of connection. And the other thing, too, is I have a TomTom or a Garmin, one of those portable GPSs, or my phone has got GPS. So, yeah, no, there's just no way to tap that to connect into your scanner. And these things are inexpensive enough where, if you're going to spend $500 on the scanner, you can spend another $85 on the GPS. So
another thing that we're asked a lot, when mobile, set the range to 0. That normally works the best because it limits the amount of traffic the radio gets. Let's say if you set it to 30 miles, you're kind of defeating the purpose of using GPS scanning because you're going to get... Remember, we were looking at that map, and we had on our 536 0 radius. So basically, it's going to pick up the circles that are touching you around that area. If you put in a 30-mile radius, it's going to... You're going to be picking up everything from Lakeville to Boone.
Yeah, and beyond. You're going to be picking up stuff from five different states. And, you want to start your especially when you're mobile, if you set it to 0, it's just your local stuff that you're going to hear. And that bubble is going to follow you as you drive. If you set that mileage to 1 or 5 or 10, that bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The problem is that bubble goes in all directions. So it's going to be adding stuff in back of you as well. And you don't want to listen to stuff in back of you because you've already been through there. You're not going back that way again. You want to listen to more of the stuff in front of you or more likely right around you.
Yeah, that's for sure. You want to make sure that you're monitoring exactly what you want to be able to monitor. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. And where did we leave off here? So we covered that bullet point on a zip code scanner.
Zip code scanners, yeah.
Yeah,
so on the zip code scanners, you can use the GPS with the full database, the favorites list, or both. And this brings us right up to Jay's question as well. So if you have a zip code scanner, you can turn on the full database, and off you go with the GPS, and it will automatically turn stuff on and off from that full database, the zip code function. If you have favorites lists on your scanner and those favorites lists have location control turned on, they will turn it on and off with the GPS. You can do both, or you can just do one or the other. So you can do it with both, but remember on your favorites list, you have to enable GPS location control, which brings us right into the last bullet point there.
Yeah, with clean slate scanners, non-zip code scanners, you need to, one, program all the areas that you want to monitor. Now, you can import it in from radioreference.com. You can also, within the software, take, for instance, ArcXT. You can tweak it a little bit. So let's say you want your hometown to be a larger radius, so you'll be able to pull that signal a little bit further away to be able to hear it on the fringe of that signal. Versus, just leaving the town and you leave everything in there. You know that your hometown, you can hear it for, the radius. Let's say it's a 5-mile radius on radio reference, but you can hear it for 10-mile radius. What you can do is alter the range and make it a 10-mile radius. So with the zip code based scanners, you've got the database. With the non-zip code based scanners, you need to program it in. Program in all the areas. Make sure that the location service information is available on your groups, your transmit sites, if it's a trunk system, and also on your talk groups as they're grouped. And you also, the biggest thing, as Rich has mentioned multiple times, enable location services on those things.
Yeah, don't do what I did.
Yeah, because you're going to get either nothing to scan or it's never going to change anything. If you've done some of the systems and you left it wide open on other systems. So certainly you want to definitely do that. So I just posted in our chat the GPS kit that we're going to be talking about in a little bit, so you can take a look at that later on. This is the old GPS hardware, which Rich was just showing us, and I currently use this as well. So Rich has one in his hand. I'll pull up Rich so you can show it off. Here you go.
All right. So on the old GPS, there were 4 parts, and there's sort of 4 parts. This is the actual GPS receiver itself. Comes out to a little DIN plug, mini DIN plug on here, and the GPS receiver is here. And there's a little red light that comes up when it's powered up, and there's a little magnet in the in here, so it will stick on something metal, and it will stay there. Again, it doesn't have to be outside. I actually did put a piece of Velcro on my one in my old vehicle and just kind of tapped it up inside the back window. And then this plugs into, I call this the adapter cable or the hub cable. So there's a little round connector like this that the GPS plugs into. There is a power cord that plugs into the cigarette lighter that does not power the radio, except, and we'll get to that, and then the DB9 plug. And that'll plug directly into the back of a 536, a 996, or a 15. And then it comes with this little adapter cable, which is the one that has got the DB9 male with the pins, and the little unit. I can't find my camera. The little Uniden connector that goes into the side of, say, a 436. There's a GPS port on the 436, and it connects into that. It also can plug into the 396 and a couple of the other scanners. If you've got a 325 or an SDS 100, you need the optional adapter cable, which replaces all of this stuff, and you just take the round GPS puck, you plug it into the DIN plug here, and now it's got a USB plug, and that's used to power it up. And then it's got this UPS USB mini that goes into the side of the 325 or the 125 in the regular USB port. and that not only gives the GPS power, but you have to plug this into 5 volts USB power. It powers the radio and the GPS at the same time. So if you have a 325 or an SDS 100 and you've got one of these round pucked GPS, you need to get this special adapter cable. And we do sell them at Scanner Master. I'm not sure if they're in stock. We've been having a hard time getting some of these. So that is the lowdown on the old style round GPS puck. There's 4 parts. It gets kind of confusing. There's lots of stuff, but it works.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, that is the original GPS receiver that Uniden came out with, and that's been around for quite a while. That's currently what I'm using in the truck. I haven't, as you can see, I haven't used the new kit. It's still in the box, so we can do the unboxing. But here it is.
Yeah, I've got mine unboxed already, so we can use mine as the guinea pig tonight.
So the other component that recently came out, so it's almost like we're doing a little history lesson here with the various GPSs. So let's take a look at this next slide. Here it is right here. This is the Uniden GPS hardware for this one. It's the BC GPS K, and this is discontinued. This would be the GPS that you would need for the SDS 200, and it actually comes with, you know, that goofy CB radio scanner thing that's out that Uniden created, the BT 885. Yeah. It's more of a CB radio than a scanner.
CB radio that has a sort of a scanner built into it, sort of, kind of.
And this is basically the component that you would need for those 2 radios. Looks like a very interesting phone cable with a box. And
it actually is exactly that. It's a 4-conductor phone cable. So sometimes if you need a longer cable, make sure that it has all 4 wires in there. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but there actually is 4 conductors. A lot of phone cables these days only have the 2 conductors. This one has 4. Make sure you have all 4 conductors. And if in case you need a longer one, but chances are you won't. Just use the one that comes with it. So.
Okay, so there's that. So
we used to sell this separately for the SDS 200, but that's now been discontinued. The GPS, not the SDS.
No, the SDS.
No, we don't want to start more rumors.
But yeah, and the difference in between this one and the GPS that we showed you, the GPS receiver is actually powered by the scanner.
Yeah.
On both the SDS 200 and the BT 885. So we don't see any power cable. It's just basically the telephone wire and the little GPS square there. So that's
there's 4 conductors. There's one for GPS data, one for 12 volts plus, and then one. Then there's a common. So it's a much simpler installation and much cleaner installation for an SDS 200 than any other scanner.
Okay, so now we've shown you the beginning of how GPS scanning came about with certain components. Now the next slide is the brand new Uniden GPS receiver kit. Now, mind you, this is going to have a lot of adapters, so brace yourself.
But you don't have to use all of them at the same time.
All right, so let me put this up on the screen. Whoa, there they all are.
Jeez, look at all that stuff.
So some of this we've actually seen. It's actually components that have used in past GPS kits. As you can see here, this one kit alone will operate on all of these radios. It's not going to use all the components. We're actually going to show you the components that are needed to operate with certain radios, and the other components you don't need. So as you can see here, the 15, the 15X, the 346, the 396, the 996T, XT, P2, 436, 536, Home Patrol, SDS 100, and 200. So all those radios that this GPS kit will work off of. So let's take a look at the next slide here. And this is what's in the box. These are all the connections. So we've got the GPS receiver, the adapter box, the automotive power cord, the mobile connection, which is DB9 to DB9, the portable connection, which is DB9 to Uniden serial port. We have the SDS 100 and 325 connection, which is a DB9 to a mini USB. We have the SDS 200 connector cable, which is that phone cord. So a lot of the things that we just learned are going to play into this actual kit. So we'll pull this up here. This is the easiest connection here. This is literally, you're using two things from the kit. That's it. And Rich is holding it in his hand. We can take a look at that real quick. There it is.
That's all you need for the SDS 200. Take everything else and just put it back in the box. This is the only thing you need when you have an SDS 200. So if you got an SDS 200, all you're going to need is this. If you got any other radio, you're going to need at least a couple other pieces.
So we've started off with the easy one. So now we're going to continue on. And remember, baud rate with this, with every one of these, is going to be 9600 because it's the square or rectangular GPS antenna.
The matchbox size.
Here we go. Look at this. So this is our SDS 100, and BC325P2 is going to need the GPS, the telephone cord, the hub, the serial to a mini, and the power cable. And we'll take a look at it on Rich's screen right there. Hold on one second. There it is, all put together.
Right. So you got the GPS receiver here. It plugs into the side with the gray cable. You've got the power cord, which plugs into the hub and plugs into your cigarette lighter socket. Just looks like the regular power cord there and plugs into there. And then there's a DB9 on the hub there, and you take the DB9 to USB. So there's the USB mini, DB9 on the other end. That plugs into the hub and then plugs into your SDS 100 or your BCD 325. Those are the only two radios that you need that for, that particular arrangement. Yeah, it looks kind of ungainly, but once you put this up in the car and you hide the wires, it's not so bad. But yeah, it does look like kind of a confusing mess of wires because, well, it is.
All right, so there's one example. So let's take a look at the next configuration. Now, this is going to be all your base mobile scanners typically. This is going to be your BC536, your 996s, and your BCT15s. Looks like the same amount of wires. We have, of course, the GPS, the phone cable, the hub, the power cable, and then we also have the serial, but the difference is it's serial on both ends. Now let's take a look at it as Rich is showing it on screen to see what we've got here. So
you've got a USB female, a DB9 female to DB9 female. It's ambidextrous. It goes either way. And so you plug one end into the hub and the other end at the back of your 536 or your 996 or your 15. All the rest of this is the same. Still got the GPS receiver, still got the power. The difference is this does not power your radio. So this only will power the GPS. You still need to accommodate for power for your radio, and that's on a separate plug. So you might need a 2 cigarette lighter adapter kit, or power the radio directly into your fuse box or what have you. So that's that.
And we'll show it again on the screen there. So there is everything that you would need for this. That's why we're doing a video with this, because this is a lot of components. So let's take a look at our next slide. And this is the Home Patrol 1 and 2 And this is going to cover a whole bunch of things here. So let's take a look at that configuration. Still a baud rate of 96, as always. So let's take a look at this, Rich. What do we got?
All right, so this is the DB9 that plugs into the hub box, and this is that little tiny connector that plugs into the GPS connector on the side of your Home Patrol 1 and 2. Now, if you've got a Home Patrol 2, don't use that USB cable because it will not power the radio, and it will not get GPS through the USB plug. You still got to use this little goofy thing. So you have the hub and the GPS and the 12-volt power that only powers the GPS, and then you plug this into the DB9 to plug into your radio.
All right, so we've got a mess of wires there as well. Let's look at some of the, these are for the common handheld scanners, such as the 436, the 396, T and XT, and the 346. So let me...
Greg asked if we have home patrols. Yes, we both have one of each.
Yes.
And I've got one on the desktop here, but it's just not in the camera view. But yeah, I use that every day. So sorry about that.
Yeah, I have a Home Patrol 1 in front of me, and then I do have a Home Patrol 2 as well. Here is the handhelds. So this is all the wires we need for this. So
Yep.
we've got very similar.
It's actually exactly the same as the Home Patrol.
Exactly the same. The other thing they have to keep in mind, it does not power the radio. So exactly the same. We gave it its own slide just because it's, the Home Patrol is kind of like a base mobile, where the handhelds are handhelds. So same cables. Rich can show that little adapter again that kind of makes it different, which is that Uniden little mini adapter that's there. But everything else is exactly the same for the most part.
And if you've got like a 436 or a 396, there's a little GPS port right there. If you've got a 396, that's the only port you're going to see, except for the little round power port. If you've got a 325 or a 436, I'm sorry, not a 325, but if you've got a 436, you've got that GPS port on there. So you're going to use that. And so the 396 also uses the same plug, and it just plugs into the side of the radio, and off you go.
Very good. So there's that. And then let's, that pretty much covers GPS. And I did post in the comments a link to that product on the Scanner Master website. It is in stock as of the time of this broadcast. It may not be in a couple hours if a lot of you buy it all at once. We'll cover a little bit of business, and then we'll dive into the questions, unless you got something else to add, Rich.
Yeah, it does come with a little instruction sheet, but to tell you the truth, we have a better one. And if you're on Radio Reference in the Uniden Tech Forum, I have posted a PDF of my own personal sheet that I wrote up that makes it a lot more clear to understand what cable goes with what radio and how to connect it up and everything. So go to radioreference.com. In the forums, the Uniden Tech Forum, it's actually a pinned post right at the top. So you'll see that. You can download that that PDF and view it, and it'll give you everything that we've talked about tonight here.
Quick, off the top of my head, Alicia has a BR330T. Does that support GPS scanning?
Yeah, it's just like a 396T. So it does support GPS scanning. Again, you still have to program every system in the radio for that, and of course it won't do digital. So you have that. So it does have the same GPS port on it, just like a 396 or a 436 has.
Okay, so I just want to make sure. I was looking that up real quick. I don't own a BR330T, so I
don't have one. I used to have one, and unfortunately I sold it, which I wish I would have kept it because it is a neat radio.
It certainly
picks
is.
It picks up shortwave, which is of limited usefulness, but it's kind of cool to have.
It certainly is, and it has that the continuous band coverage, which is a
Yeah.
huge thing as well.
Yeah.
So next week, by popular demand, we're going to be talking about aviation scanning. This was another broadcast that we did on Facebook that we're doing again on YouTube, so it'll live forever on our YouTube channel. When we covered this the last time, we basically talked about what happens. What do you listen to? From how does the plane get from A to B to C to D and so on, and what frequency of changes occur within this process. Rich is going to take a deep dive next week and go over all of this. So if you're just getting involved in aviation scanning, he's going to help you to understand what you're listening to and what happens in different portions of where the plane ends up, whether it's on the runway, taxiing, or when it's in the air, what frequency changes will occur there, and some cool stuff for being able to plane watch at an airport. He's going to go over all that next week. That's Wednesday, December the 9th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here on our YouTube channel. So make sure you hit subscribe.
Be here or be rectangular.
And don't forget, we're trying to reach 50 hats. If you like the programming that we offer and you enjoy the shows, keep them going. Definitely show your support of the Scanner Guys. Purchase your Scanner Guys ball cap online before Friday. We're trying to get to 50 hats. You can check them out on our website, thescannerguys.weebly.com. I'll post the link again during the comments section where you can purchase it directly. And your purchases will help to keep the Scanner Guys live on the air, and also will be able to allow us to be able to get some more tools and gadgets to be able to make these broadcasts even cooler. Yep. So make sure you check out the Scanner Guys hats and place your order for one of those. And the Train Aficionado live show will be this Monday, December the 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. It will be on our other YouTube channel, which is Train Aficionado. Make sure you hop over there, hit the subscribe button. So this Monday, we're going to be taking a look at some of Rich's slides. We're not going to look at 10,000 of them.
No.
We're going to look at a few. And we're also going to talk about railroad mergers with the going on with the buying out of Pan Am. CSX is going to be taking over Pan Am. So that's going to be interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Yep. We're also going to talk about some of the big mergers, the Big Seven, how they became the Big Seven. And we will talk about that during the Train Aficionado live show Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to all the social media for Train Aficionado. And don't forget Scanner Master on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And, of course, the Scanner Guys on our social media. We'll remind you all this again by the end of the broadcast. Now it's time to take all your questions. There's a lot of questions and comments, so we'll take a deep dive into that right now.
I'm actually going to start from the end and go back up towards the top because we've covered a lot of the questions in line. So you want to put up the email address again for submitting photos?
Okay,
while you're doing that...
Oh, wait a minute. So Alicia, if you've... let me just... so it's Train Aficionado at gmail.com. Let me just see. I'll just check my email real quick. I don't think I received it, but I'll double check.
Yeah. Now, if you got train pictures, send it to that. And if you've got radio stuff, you can send it to our Scanner Guys email address. Okay, so she wants it for train pictures. So, yeah, if you've got that, you can pop that up there.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll type in that...
So Les asks, he's got 996p2 and he wants to reset it to factory settings. So he wants to delete all the frequencies. So you can do that. And it will erase everything in the radio. And if I recall correctly, it's the 2, the 9, and the 0 button?
290 and hold.
Yeah, 290 and hold. So you're going to need 4 fingers or 2 hands and then have somebody out there turn the radio on. So turn the radio off, press those 290 and hold buttons all at the same time, then turn the radio on, and it will clear all the memories, and it'll be just like it came from the factory. So only do that if you want to erase everything. And you cannot do that accidentally. There is no way you're going to be able to press on all 4 buttons at the same time while you're turning it on. It's hard enough to do it on purpose, much less do it accidentally. So,
yeah, it's not the easiest thing. I've had a lot of practice with it. I'm able to do it, but it takes a little bit to do it. It's because you're just trying to put your fingers in multiple spots of the radio.
Yeah, if you're a guitar player, you could probably do it pretty simply. But I'm not a guitar player. My fingers don't quite move that way. So I've actually had to have my wife come in while I've held the buttons down with 2 hands, and I say, "Now turn the radio on." So I could.
So Alicia, I did post in the comments the trainaficionado@gmail account. So email that over to me. I have it up. All I ask is, to just give us a brief description of where the photos were taken, so we'll be able to tell the audience where it's from. We'll definitely give you a photo cred during the show as well. So, Les, that's an awesome question. I can tell you that I've done radio resets multiple times because, I just want a clean slate and start all over again.
Yeah. And that 290 and hold works for most of the Uniden scanners. We get that same question a lot for Whistler scanners. And on that one, you press 0 as we turn the radio on, and then press the 0 button right away, and then there'll be prompts. And I think you press 0, then 0, and then 1. But the screen will prompt you for what you want to do to erase all the settings in the radio. And remember, that will erase everything you've programmed. And if that's what you want to do, go for it. If you just want to delete one channel, then just reprogram over it. And then if you've got a zip code scanner or an SD card scanner like a Home Patrol or a 436, you do that on the computer with the clear all data or clear user data through the Sentinel software.
As you can see here with both of those, they don't make it easy for you to be able to do this.
Yeah, because most people don't want to do that. And if you want to, they don't want you to do it accidentally. So, because it's going to erase all your work. If you spent hours and hours and hours programming it, you're not likely going to want to erase it all in a heartbeat. So, it's not like press the clear button, that'll erase everything. It's like,
I can tell you that I programmed a lot of my scanners when I started in this hobby by hand, and I would be crushed after programming it if it took 2 seconds to delete it out by one keystroke.
Oh, that would drive. Oh, I would, and I've done stupid stuff like that before. I've spent hours and hours and hours writing something for one of my books or something like that, and then I will accidentally not save it, and it's like, oh man, I spent all evening writing that, and it's gone. So we got a question about the 125. Does he have to use the specific programming cable that came with it, or can he use the programming cable for his TRX? That's a good question. And yes, you can, actually. So a lot of scanners these days use the same cable, and unfortunately I don't have the proper cable right here in my hand, but basically it's going to be a USB at one end and then a USB mini at the other. That's that little trapezoid-looking type cable, which I've got one around here, something with that on here. Here we go. It's going to look like this. Is the USB mini. And so if you've got any of the Uniden scanners except for the SDS 200 that use USB, so that's any of the P2 scanners, the 436, the 536, the Home Patrol 1 and 2, and the Whistler TRX 1 or TRX 2, you can use the same USB mini cable. Nothing special about it. There's no electronics in the cable. It's just a standard everyday USB mini cable, and I use one cable for a whole boatload of different radios. The ones that are different are the older Whistler, the WS1040 and 1065. They use a special serial port cable, and some of the older Unidens like the XT series and older, so the 996 XT, the BCT 15X, the 996T, the BCT 15, the 396, the 330 that Alicia has. You need to use a Uniden cable that has the tiny little square connector on it, and I don't know. There's a name for that connector, but I have no clue what it is. So that's a great question there. So let's see here. Scrolling back here, we did that. We got the email. Corey's got a police chase going down in his area right now. Those are a lot of fun to listen to. And I tell you what, people think, wow, cops love to get into police chases. No, we don't.
It's fun to listen to, but I don't think it's fun to be in it.
No, the first time I did that, it scared the living daylights out of me, and I was like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Stop! 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 Stop!" You know, and you just hope the heck that guy that's gonna, that's the civilians, the good guys aren't going to get in your way, much less the bad guy. You don't care what happens to the bad guy; he's already made his piece. But you don't want to get any innocents. That's why we don't do police chases anymore. Most agencies these days, except if you're in LA. They just don't do police chases. They're just too darn dangerous. And too many innocent people get killed. You know, if you run from the police, you probably deserve whatever you've got coming to you. But we don't want you to take out the civilians or the passenger in your car who may not have any say in the matter. And we certainly don't want to get the police officers hurt either. But yeah, it's not nowadays. Most of the time, it's not worth it. Charlie asks if there's any way that he can hear other states on his WS1040. You can program stuff from other states, but unless you're within close enough range to it, no. A scanner is a radio, and it all works on physics. And there's no way you can program your scanner in LA to be able to listen to Las Vegas or New York or something like that. It just unfortunately just doesn't work that way.
The best conversation I give to people that call up with the phone with that question. So your police or fire department will create let's say they have their own independent system. So the system will operate within the city limits and slightly outside of it. Now you got to realize that this system is constructed to work within the city and maybe slightly outside of it. Right. They're not going to spend any more money making this system work 30, 40 miles outside of the city. They're basically going to make it so it works within the city limits or just slightly outside of it. Anything beyond that is gravy to us scanner enthusiasts. So if we're able to get that signal a lot further out than what it was intended for, we are very, very lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to the question about, do I need an outside antenna for my scanner? Well, if you're listening to your hometown or your home county or your home area, probably not. Just the back of the antenna will normally work okay for you. It's when you want to listen to stuff that's further out. Then the further you go, the bigger, the higher, the more out of antenna you're going to need. So if you've got the back of the head antenna, you're going to pick up your local stuff because those, like Jonathan just said, those radio systems are designed to provide coverage within your town. And if the police officer's portable radio will work when he's coming to your house to come take you away, chances are your scanner's going to work there.
Yeah, that's a good example. Very good example.
Oh, I do that. I say it all the time. And the guy says, oh, how did you know about that? And I'm like, oh, well, you just sound like a guy they come and take away. No, but yeah, that's what it is. Basically, if a police officer radio is designed to work there, your scanner's going to work there as well. So Alicia's got a 330T. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. That 330T was a neat scanner, a nice compact little scanner. Looks just like a 396, same case style 346, but it actually picked up from like 500 kilohertz all the way up to 1300 with just the TV band in the middle that didn't pick up. And on shortwave, it worked actually pretty well on shortwave, but only in the AM mode. So it did, you couldn't pick up hams on sideband or Morse code, but you could pick up shortwave broadcasters. I used to listen to the BBC on mine, and I wish I still had that thing. It was pretty cool. And it does do trunking, EDAX trunking and Motorola trunking, and I think it also did LTR, but it didn't do any formatted digital. So it's a limited usefulness for a lot of people these days. And Greg, yes, we do have home patrols. I've got a home patrol 2 here. I got a home patrol 1 here as well. These are actually my daily drivers. You can see it's actually on, and I've got it held on a channel. I did disconnect the antenna so I can show it to you.
Me too.
So I have a whole boatload of scanner antennas up in my attic, and I have a 8-port multi-coupler on my desk on the back of my stack. And I got cables going to my 2 home patrols over here. So those are the ones that I listen to right here on my desk. In fact, you can see the home patrol 1. There it is. Let me scoot it over a little bit. See?
Yeah.
There's the home patrol 1, and it's still plugged in. So they do work great. I wasn't really cognizant of the concept when they first came out because it wasn't built for me. Really, it was built for anybody to be able to listen to. And then when I got it, I'm thinking, well, I'm a scanner guy. What am I going to do with this thing? It wasn't for me. It took me a while to figure out the genius behind it. So
yeah, I love my home patrol. I actually have one of my home patrols I basically use when I go camping. I'll use it in my travel trailer, and I have multiple favorites lists set up. Well, it used to be when I lived in Massachusetts, I would have places that we would frequently camp at. Normandy Farms in Foxborough, Massachusetts, one of the premier campgrounds in New England.
You talk about that place all the time.
Oh, your wife, I know she's talked about getting a camper. She would love Normandy because it's a resort. It's huge. I know she loves to do her walks. There's multiple pools. It's clean. They have tons of cool events going on there. It's a really nice campground, Normandy Farms. So I would have a favorites list for there. And guess what? While I was there, I brought my other radio, got close call, able to listen to the campground. Let me just put it this way, Rich. This campground is large enough that it has a repeater. So that tells you.
And you've got the frequency too, don't you?
Yeah, I get the frequency. So yeah, I would listen to them. They actually have 2 channels. So they have a primary channel, which is on the repeater, and then they have a secondary channel. It's kind of off the repeater, so it's line of sight. So I have both of those channels. I camped up in Ware, New Hampshire would be another, and Ware. That's Ware.
Okay.
Yep. So I camped up there. They actually had 2-way radios there, but they didn't have a repeater. I would listen to them as well. And then I've also listened to the New Hampshire stuff there. So that was a couple of favorites lists. And then I would camp, where else? Mystic, Connecticut. And then I would be able to listen to the casinos. Foxwoods and Mohegan are not far from there. So yeah, I mean, the Home Patrol was great because it was touchscreen display. I set up multiple favorites lists. But yeah, even Rich and I.
When I was... Before I got married, when I was single, I used to do a lot of camping, but tent camping. So I'd have if it was by myself, I had a little 2-man pump tent, and I would just find a place and set up the tent and sleep in overnight. But I'd driven out to Boston to drop off my girlfriend at college there, and I was gonna camp on the way back, and it was I stayed there for Labor Day. So now it was after Labor Day, and I was up in far northern Maine, and I stopped in a campground because I needed to take a shower. I'd been on the road for 3 days. And so I went to a campground to, so I could go in there. I was the only person in the entire campground. And I pull up there and I open the door, and the lady's looking at me like, "What do you want?" So I need to pitch my tent for the night. So, Yeah, okay. Well, it's $12. Put it anywhere you want to. And I'm sitting there, and I'm the only guy in the whole campground. And of course, I had my scanner at the time. It was probably a 796 or a 250 or something like that, And oh, it was crazy. So let's see here. If I found anybody refan, my ST2. I have been begging and pleading, and there's a guy in Radio Reference that's been talking about it and teasing about it, for quite a while. If I had the skills, I would make the ST2s myself. So Dave is next door in Wapole.
It's
Walpole.
Walpole.
Okay. I don't know. I've been to Boston a couple of times. I don't know how to pronounce it.
All right, you know what we should do the next time we have fun with the scanner guys?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Massachusetts town names, and you're gonna try to
try to pronounce them. Yeah. Yeah.
Walpole.
Well, I've had a couple people from Texas call me the last couple of days, and they live in San Antonio, and they say, "Oh, so you live in Bear County?" And they're like, "My God, you're the first person not from here that pronounced it correctly." And because it's spelled Bexar or Bexer, I forget which. And people always say it's Bexar County. No, it's Bear County. And the only reason I happen to know how to pronounce it is, number one, I've been there, and number two, I've got a couple friends that live there. So, Worcester, yeah,
Worcester.
Where do you get woos? Where do you get? There's no ooh in there.
I don't know.
Worcester.
It's Massachusetts. Worcester.
Yeah. And how many people here can actually spell Massachusetts? But people in Massachusetts can't spell Massachusetts. So.
All right. Where
all right. Will has been in 5 chases, and he was petrified in each one. So, yeah, Will and I've known Will for about 55 years or so. If you're ever involved in a police chase as the driver of a police car, it scares the living daylights out of you. It is just, it is. That's why. We don't do them anymore. And I have let so many cars go that have taken off on me. If I've got the license plate or if I know who the person is, I worked in a small town, and we knew the cars. And if I knew who the guy was, I'd let him go and I'd get him tomorrow. Yeah.
But you got to admit, when you put that squad car airborne, that must have been fun. You got to admit that was.
But that wasn't on purpose, though.
But you gotta admit, when you did that, you probably were pretty impressed, weren't you?
I was. I didn't expect I could get an 84 Crown Vic to go that far up off the ground. So we'll take 30 seconds and tell the story here. Midnight shift. First time I was on midnights by myself right after I got out of the academy, and I'd been through field training. And then the first month on myself, they put me on midnights. And I see a motorcycle come down the wrong way on a one-way street and head off into the neighborhood. And it was right on the border of our town. So I go off after him. And I didn't know it at the time, but the next town, which is a block away, there was a creek. And there was a bridge over the creek. And it was like this. And I gunned my car at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I gunned my squad car. I probably hit that thing about 45 miles an hour. And went whoosh, and I'm like, oh, Nelly. I need wings and an aileron on this thing. And those mid-'80s Crown Victorias were these big, huge boat-like cars, big square boxes with wheels on them. And they drove like a boat. You had to turn the wheel 15 minutes ahead of time to make that turn. Well, they're big, they're huge, they're heavy, but you get enough momentum and you get the right angle, and they will go airborne. And if you ever seen the Blues Brothers, that's basically what it was. And when I landed on the ground, I hit the rear bumper first, and then the wheels came down. All 4 hubcaps went in different directions, and I'm like, oh, Jeez, well, the motorcycle, he's long gone. I have no idea where he went. So now I stopped. Now I'm digging around the bushes in this little
collected hubcaps,
trying to find my hubcaps. I never found them. Yeah, Dukes of Hazzard, man. They'd have nothing on me, man. And of course the rear bumper was bent up, and so I called the sergeant and I said, "Oh man." So the 3 or 4 of us meet in the police garage, the guys that work in the street, and now we got 4 guys. I wish I would have had this on camera. We got 4 guys all standing on the bumper of this car trying to force it down again. Oh, yeah. Dukes of Hazzard got it from me. Yeah. I tell you, man, I could hear that. I could hear Waylon Jennings on the guitar. Oh, God, and that guy, I have no idea. To this day, I have no idea whatever happened to that motorcycle. He was probably pulled off into the driveway, turned the lights off, was laughing his head off at me, looking for my hubcaps. Okay, so we were talking about the antenna, the SD2 antenna. I don't know how we got talking about that. But the SD2 antenna is my world's favorite antenna. I've got 4 of them up in my attic right now. They work great. They are not particularly sturdy. So there's a guy in Radio Reference who has been talking about building them now, or antennas of the same design, but more sturdy with thicker, better materials and stuff. So he's had some engineering issues. I offered to help beta test it for him, but it's just been kind of I guess that's not really happening at this point, but I would love to be able to get something like that. And I have considered trying to make something like that myself, but I'm just not that good. I could put stuff together, but I can't make things. So, so that's, I would love to have a newer ST2 version. Let's see here. Diction shaming. Yeah. The problem is they don't have diction in Massachusetts. They talk weird there. It's like they are Wicca Nor'easter. It's like half the times they don't pronounce all the letters in the words, and the other times they add new pronunciations to words that they don't include them. So, yeah, fun with locations. Yeah, that's a good one. So Dave had his share of chases as well. And the best part is he actually caught everybody he's chased. I've caught most of them, at least the long chases that I've been involved with, but not all of them. I worked in a small town, so.
Yeah, I remember, watching live PD, and I always cringed, every time I saw them go through a development with the speed bumps, hitting them at full force. It's just gonna, you're just gonna get quite a whack.
If you have the little speed bumps and you hit those at 45, 50 miles an hour, it's not that bad because you just kind of bounce off of them. It's the wider speed humps that they use now. They're a lot longer, a lot wider. Those cause you to go airborne.
What's
the other one's like hitting the curb. Yeah, you're gonna dent the rims. Been there and done that. So
your experience of going airborne.
So which one was it Bo or Luke that was the driver of the with the General Lee?
I don't
remember. They were like, Bo and Luke, which one's which? It's like the scanner guys. Which one's Jonathan and which one's Rich? Well, I don't know. They're interchangeable. So when they people call up and they, I watch the scanner guys. Which one are you? And said, I'm the good looking one. And they say, oh, Jonathan. No. And I say, Curly.
Curly of the Three Stooges.
We had a caller that actually said, oh, you're the guy who looks like Curly. And I'm like, okay, I guess. So the cyclist wrecked, he wrecked from laughing, yeah. So Carmen asks about the Channel Master antenna. So the Channel Master scanner antenna was sort of similar. They're both basically dipoles, several dipoles on a common mast, and it was a little bit different design. It had a lot of the stuff in common. So the ST2 had a bunch of different elements, but they were repeated. They had a center boom, and then they had a bunch of different elements going up and down, and they were identical on either side. And you fold out all these different elements, and there were 800 megahertz UHF elements, VHF, and low band elements. Channel Master had kind of a similar thing, just a little bit different design. It had more of a pitchfork look to it. But they were both great antennas. I didn't have too. I had one of the Channel Masters years and years ago, but I just happened to be able to come across a bunch of ST2s. Radio Shack sold the ST2. In fact, Radio Shack actually was the builder of the ST2. They had a subsidiary, and I'm trying to remember the name. It was AntennaCraft, and they owned AntennaCraft, and they made the ST2 antenna in a factory in Iowa, and they made a bunch of TV antennas as well. And they sold AntennaCraft sold the antenna separately as well. So yeah, so that's the Channel Master antenna. And then the ST2. I don't know if you've got a picture of the ST2.
Let me see if I can find that while you're talking.
Yeah. So the ST2 has got a few more elements on it as well. So, and let's see here. So, but they're great antennas. And the neat thing about those antennas is they have elements for the different bands, and they all come through on a common feed line down to the scanner, and they just work really well. The other antenna I thought that worked really well was their antenna specialist had their Monitor 51 mobile antenna, which was about a 3 or 4 foot tall mobile antenna with an NMO connector on it. And they sold a ground plane kit for it, kind of like the one that we sell for the Comtelco antenna. But they had one that was a much larger ground plane. It was the ground plane elements were 3 feet long. My buddy Matt had one of those things, and that thing was awesome on low band. So, all right. So while you're looking that up, let me see if there's anything else. Looks like we handled most of the comments already in line. So, it looks like either Luke or Bo was a driver. Yep, there's the Comtelco. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able to find, since the SD2's been discontinued, it's hard to find images because everybody's pretty much dumped it off their website.
If you're looking for a low cost, base station antenna, that basically is we put a Comtelco antenna on a ground plane. It works awesome in an attic, but outside, you got to be kind of careful. If you're in a bad weather area, high winds or snow and ice, it may not be the right antenna, but they work great in an attic if that's what you've got. So, so Carmen never knew that. We're going to do Jay's here first. So, we were talking about full database and stuff. We've actually talked about this. So, Jay, you may not want to set that 10-mile radius because you're going to have stuff in all directions. It's going to go 10 miles in any direction. So now you've got this big, huge circle, this bubble that's going to follow you. And you may have too much stuff turned on at the same time. So I normally tell people to start very small with their range settings for GPS. If you're mobile, set it to 0. See how it works. And then maybe increase it to like 1 mile or 2 miles. 10 miles is probably going to be too big. Let's see, we've got a couple new comments here real quick. Carmen never realized that AntennaCraft was owned by Radio Shack. He had an FM broadcast band, Yagi. So yeah, they had a factory and it was in Iowa, right along the river. Burlington, Iowa, I think is where it was. And it was a relatively small factory. I mean, it wasn't very big. It was a metalworking shop, and they built the antennas there, and they sold them at Radio Shack. They sold them on their own as AntennaCraft as well, so you could buy them and a lot of TV stores. I used to see AntennaCraft stuff at Sears or Billy Bob's, TV shop and bait and tackle, and those kind of places. Or you can go to Radio Shack and buy the exact antenna, but now it says Radio Shack on it instead of AntennaCraft. So Mike is late. Mike, we start at 7 o'clock Central Time. So let's be on time next week, please. We'll let it slide this time, but be on time next week, please. And you're going to have to go and watch the replay. Greg has got a magnetic mount car antenna, which he uses on an old computer lid, which, remember when computers used to be made out of metal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it actually works very well. So what he's doing is he's taking a mag mount antenna and using the old computer lid as a ground plane. Hopefully you don't have a hard drive in there, because now your hard drive is going to be erased. But hard drives, physical hard drives and magnets do not play well to each other. But there is a, you need something metal for a ground plane on that. And using a mag mount in a house, put it on. I use cake pans for my wife's when we bought first bought the house. So. Bobby asks if Whistler will ever offer a scanner with GPS. I don't think that will ever happen. There are patents involved, and I'm pretty certain that Uniden has the patents on this. In fact, I've actually read the patent, and Uniden does have a patent on that. So the only way they could do that is if they license it from Uniden or find some way to get around the patent situation. So
the other thing that doesn't play well with it is Uniden's memory structure plays well with GPS scanning, where Whistler would have to do some drastic memory structure changes. Just looking alone at the 1040 or the 1065, that only has 20 scan lists. Where with a Uniden 996 T, P2, or XT has 99 systems. And then within the systems, it has 10 groups. So you can break out programming a lot, and having GPS on each one of those groups is key. With Whistler's memory structure does not play well at all with GPS scanning. They would have to definitely change some things with their memory structure. Yeah,
it's just like they have two different, it's like driving a Chevy and a Ford. You're still going to get there at the end of the day, but you're going to take two different paths. The Uniden path works really well with GPS. The Whistler path just doesn't. So now there are some people who like the Whistler method of doing things, especially if you like doing that on a per county basis. Because when you put in the zip code, it loads in everything for that county. You want to add another county? Fine, just pop in a zip code from that county. And it makes it really quick and easy. On the Unidens, it's that part of it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, so, it's just, I don't foresee it, on the Whistler side. They would have to do some drastic things. And as you mentioned, they would have to come up with some sort of workaround with the patent.
Right.
It's just...
it's just like the old days. Remember, Ford had the double key that would work either way, and I think they probably had some sort of patent on that. That's why when you bought a Chevy, you always had to make sure you put the key in the right way, because it wouldn't work, upside down. Whereas a Ford, it would. Uniden has the GPS; it works great with that. Whistler doesn't, and that's just the way it is. So. Don't forget to order your ball cap. We put the link on the in the chat again. So our buddy from New Mexico has got a Scan Master double discone. It works great. So it's not a Scanner Master. It's not from us. It's from a different company. I haven't had one of those antennas. I've heard of them, but I've never actually had one. But I've heard some good things about them. So. I don't know if they're still being made or not, but I have heard about them. So one of our late arrivals has a quick question. Mike says he's got the transistor and diodes blowing up on his 436.
he put in a big question. I had to sit up.
Yeah.
Are you gonna
So it might be from one of his radios that are transmitting. So yes. So Mike, the professor will answer your question here as long as you're on time next week. So yeah, that can definitely happen. If you have scanners and two-way radios in your vehicle or real close to each other, scanners and especially the multi-couplers from Stridsberg, they have protection diodes on the RF stage, so to help protect the radio from overload. And what happens is that diode actually acts as a fuse, and if it detects too high a signal coming in at the antenna, the thing is going to go, and the radio is going to be effectively deaf, or your multi-coupler is going to be effectively an attenuator. So I've used multi-couplers in the car, and having a dual bander in the car. Try to keep the antennas as far away as possible if you've got a transmitting radio to help prevent that. Sometimes you don't have much choice, but yeah, it can definitely happen. If you're transmitting too close to your scanner, it can damage the RF circuitry, and you'll need to send the scanner or the multi-coupler in for repairs.
Have a good night, Les. Before you sign
Before
out.
we lose you, good night. Yeah,
night.
you can watch the rest of it on the replay. We're almost done anyway. So, Jim was also late. Jim.
He's also got a long question too, making us sit up again.
So, listen to the rebroadcast. Okay, that's cool. That we'll let it slide this time, Jim. So, how do you know if the GPS is linked up? This is a great question, and we did not bring this question up. So, thank you very much. So, on the radio display, when you have the GPS plugged in, you will get a GPS indication. Every radio is going to be a little bit different. On the 996 and the 15, it'll just say GPS on the top row. There'll be a GPS location, and I don't remember exactly where it is on the 436. On the SDS, you have to make sure that one of your customizable fields is set for GPS. Or what you can do is you can also set one of those fields up for your latitude or longitude. So what I do on my SDS is I have one of those fields set to latitude or longitude so that I know not only is GPS connected because it'll say GPS, but when I see the latitude or longitude pop up in that field, then I know that GPS has acquired a satellite and is sending data to the radio, which is a kind of a neat thing on the SDS. So
yes,
another thing you can do on the 996 and the 15 series is if you can set it to show the GPS location information on the display of the radio. So it'll actually tell you your elevation and stuff. When it was actually much easier to do when you had the remote head plugged into the radio because you just hit the F3 button. You can program the F buttons on the remote head, and I programmed the F3 button for GPS. And I guess, there's a GPS button on there. So when you press the GPS button on the radio, it will show you your GPS location and your elevation. So my car at the time didn't have an elevation display on the radio, and living in the mountains, elevation is kind of important. So I would do that, and I could see as I'm going up the hill and down the hill. So nowadays my car has an elevation display on it, so it's not a big issue. Dave has got his mag mount and a metal outlet box mounted on a satellite TV mount that's clamped to the mount. So you put a mag mount antenna on something metal, it's going to work much better, and it's a great alternative to your to an outside antenna if that's not possible. When I bought my house here, I couldn't get up in the attic because it was too hot during the summertime. So I stole a couple of cake pans from my wife's kitchen, and I put mag mount antennas on those cake pans and put them on top of the big tall bookshelf here in my office. And I did it for about a month until she was going to make cookies and couldn't find her cake pans. She was not happy when she found them. So if you're going to do that, make sure you have
the mag
permission
mounts
first.
are clean. too.
Well, yeah, but we had to go to Bed Bath and Beyond and buy new ones because I needed the mounts. I needed the pans. So she got new cake pans. I got the old ones. Let's see here. Yeah, scanners do have a GPS icon, but like I say, having on the SDS, having a field set for latitude or longitude will allow you to tell not only if there's a GPS connected to the scanner, but also that it's actually picking up GPS signals. So, Corey used to use a Radio Shack mag mount antenna for his outdoor antenna in the house. He put it on top of the chimney. So now he uses it in the other room for his room. They were great antennas. Yeah, they should work great. But remember, on an outside antenna, you got to make sure you do lightning protection. That's very important on outside antennas. If you got an antenna in the attic or in the house, you're probably okay because the house itself has got lightning protection. But once you put something outside, make sure you properly ground everything. So. Kevin asks what the best antenna is for the SDS 200. And it depends on a lot of things. The first thing is what you want to listen to, where you want to mount the antenna. Are you talking about a vehicle or at the house? Are you allowed to put an outside antenna? The first rule for scanner antennas is up and out is better. So you get antenna on the roof, works better than an antenna in the attic. An antenna in the attic works better than an antenna in the living room. And an antenna on the back of the radio works better than no antenna at all.
Yeah, I mean, what you can certainly do is give us a call. And what we can do is when we talk to you over the phone, we look at radio reference and we look at what frequency bands you're operating on. And then you can kind of describe a little bit more of how you're using the scanner, whether it be mobilely as a base mobile or as a handheld. And then we can try to sort through the antennas. I mean, there's tons of options on the website. We can kind of sort through it and find, okay, so if you're going to be using it in this fashion, this is probably the better option.
Yeah. If you want to use your attic as a place to put your antennas, that will often work pretty well. Couple things to remember is number one, make sure you don't have metal sheathing on the roof, and that you're not using some sort of metal roof because that's going to block your signal. And the insulation. If you have a cathedral attic where all the insulation is on the interior part of the roof itself, make sure it doesn't have a metal backing. Otherwise, your attic is not going to be a good place for antennas. In my attic, I have blown-in insulation on the floor, which is fine, and then it's just the plywood, and then on the outside it's clay tile. So that actually works really well. There is no metal sheathing, so my antennas actually work pretty well in my attic. The new houses in our subdivision, they have a metal backing on the insulation, and they have cathedral attics. So the attic is all on the roof, or the insulation is all on the interior part of the roof. So the attic floor is clear, but they use metal sheathing or metal backed insulation. So the attic is no good for antennas there. So that's one of the reasons why we bought this particular house, is because the attic was conducive to antenna use. And let's see here. So we did that. And and Alicia remembers it has to be grounded. So any outside antenna must be properly grounded for sure. That's rule number one for antennas, is make sure they're safely installed. Stay away from power lines. Ground your antennas properly with lightning protection, and be mindful of your surroundings. So that's why when you buy an outside antenna, be it a TV antenna or a scanner antenna, they come with these great big stickers on them all the time. There's yellow stickers with all these warnings. There's a reason for that. People have been killed. People have been hurt. Houses have burned down because people have done stupid stuff with their antennas. So don't be a statistic. And and like I say, if you're listening to your local stuff, maybe a paperclip might work. So that's pretty much the comments here, boys and girls.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, I guess we'll wrap up things. I'll just give you some quick reminders for next week's broadcast, which is going to be a good one as well. So definitely tune in as we climb into the winter months. Great to spend a Wednesday night watching the Scanner Guys. I know Dale typically has us on his big screen TV in his living room, which he sent me a photo with his cup call holding his scanner. That was an awesome photo, Dale. If you're still watching, thank you so much for sharing that. Let me just go into our slideshow before everybody departs for the evening. We want to remind you that next week's broadcast is going to be a good one. We're going to cover aviation scanning. That's going to be Wednesday, December the 9th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on our channel so you don't miss a beat. So make sure you do that. And let's take a look at what else. I just wanted to say hello to everybody that I spoke to in our audience this week over the phones. It's great to actually, Rich and I have a great conversation all the time, each and every week. It is so cool to be able to talk to you one-on-one when you call in to Scanner Master. I really enjoyed some of the conversations we had. I know I spoke to Kevin earlier this week and a few other of you guys, and I really enjoyed that. And hopefully I'll be popping on the phone maybe a couple more times for the month of December if Rich the boss allows that.
The other Rich.
Don't forget to order your baseball cap, the Scanner Guys baseball cap. We're trying to sell about 50 of them by Friday. Right now, the number total is 9. If we come under that, it's fine. But, we kind of set a goal to see if we can get 50 of those sold by Friday. Those, help to support the channel and the product that we're providing to you each and every week. And don't forget to join us this Monday, Train Aficionado Live, Monday, December the 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be talking about railroad mergers. We're also going to be looking at some of Rich's classic photos, blasts in the past when he was rail fanning not so long ago. And that'll be on the Train Aficionado YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to our friends over at the Train Aficionado, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget, the most important, the Scanner Guys. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget, as always, hit that subscribe button to be notified with any new videos on Scanner Master or the Scanner Guys or Train Aficionado. So we are looking forward to talking to you on Monday night next week. So you get us twice next week.
Yeah.
You get us on Monday night and Wednesday night. So 2 great shows. So a week of transportation. Yeah. Did you think of that?
Yeah.
We got on Monday trains and on Wednesday planes.
Yeah, and let's do it from the car, so we can have planes, trains, and automobiles.
That's for sure. So I'm looking forward to the broadcast. I just want to thank you all for, we're wrapping up 2020, and this channel wouldn't be possible without you guys. And we really enjoy interacting with you guys and your support of the channel. Keep it coming. And certainly order one of those hats. They make a perfect holiday gift. So definitely keep that in mind as well. Anything else, Rich, before we wrap it up?
That's all we got.
All right. Well, I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we thank you. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Later, guys.
Bye. Bye-bye. And we end the broadcast with barking. Our mics are still hot, and you can hear the barking.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, all.